You are watching Channel Y. Channel Y, a South Asian Canadian channel.
Hello everyone, welcome to Y Media. I'm your host Shelly Saini, and joining me today is a very special guest. Joining me today is Mr. Maninder Sidhu, Member of Parliament from Brampton East. Welcome, Mr. Sidhu.
Thank you so much, Shelly. G, first and foremost, I want to wish you and all of your viewers and listeners a very happy and healthy 2023. I hope everyone had some time to get some time with their family to rest and relax over the holidays. It's been a very busy 2022, and I wish everyone and their families a very happy 2023.
Thank you so much. Well, 23 started on a busy note for you and the government. Prime Minister Trudeau just returned from this very important summit in Mexico, and you were with him. Can you give us an analysis, an overview as to how Canada receives, or how will you mark or rank this summit in terms of Canada?
Well, I think it's a very important question, and I'm very happy you asked that. So in my appointment by Prime Minister Trudeau as the Parliamentary Secretary for Foreign Affairs, I have the responsibility to be the lead for Prime Minister Trudeau in the region, which includes South and Central America, Caribbean, and of course, Mexico. And that's why I joined the Prime Minister on this trip. So we traveled for the North American Leader Summit, where the Prime Minister met with President Biden. He met with President Obrador in Mexico. We discussed many important issues related to North America. As you know, US and Canada are very close friends of Canada. And you know, while I was in Mexico, I was able to speak about Brampton. I was able to speak about Peel and about the transportation industry and how important trade is for our transportation, logistics, and jobs and opportunity. Because as you know, every minute, $3 million worth of goods gets traded between USA, Canada, and Mexico, which accounts for just almost $2.5 billion between US and Canada. So we're a trading nation. And with that trade comes lots of jobs, lots of opportunities for our logistics companies, for our manufacturers, because I think it's roughly 20% of jobs are related one way or another to trade. So that could be logistics, supply chains, manufacturing. And so with our trade agreements with the Mexico and the US, it gives manufacturers, Canadian businesses, access to close to 500 million consumers. I mean, we're not a large country in terms of population when you compare it to the US, over 300 million people. When you compare it to Mexico, over 100 million people. But I think the trip was about discussing so many of these shared values and growing our relationship so we can continue bringing those opportunities and jobs home for Canadians.
You mentioned auto sector, and there was a fantastic news where Canada and Mexico is concerned. I'm talking about the USMCA, where the panel called in favor of Canada and Mexico. What does it mean for Canada?
That means that the trade that we have should be fair and inclusive. It should have the same accessibility for USA and Mexico. And so when Prime Minister Trudeau was in Mexico talking to the leaders of the US and Mexico, it was important to note that we talked about growing together, making sure that we continue to bring opportunities and jobs to North America for our citizens, because when we prosper together. So the CUSMA trade agreement that we signed a couple of years ago, as you may note, Shelley, under the Trump administration, President Trump wanted to rip it up. And with that would have been a loss of many, many jobs in the auto sector, in manufacturing, in logistics, and supply chains. And so we were able to get the CUSMA agreement signed a couple of years ago to ensure that the stability is still there and we're able to continue to grow upon our economy.
Right, and because it was a trilateral meeting, and one of the important factors, like you mentioned, was healthy relationship and trade between the countries. Now, Prime Minister Trudeau mentioned semiconductor industries because there has been this ongoing tensions between China and Taiwan, and Prime Minister Trudeau mentions that Canada has an important role to play when it comes to the semiconductors industry. What does he mean by that? Because he said what that role is going to be is to be discussed, and the details have not been given.
Yeah, so I mean, in the semiconductor field or the industry, Canada plays an important role right now. I would like to note that some of these semiconductors are packaged and assembled in a Quebec plant, and so we already play into the ecosystem. But I think what we need to do is focus on growing that, to see what's next. And I don't think it's up to government to, our government enables industry to grow, but also industry is the one that makes that decision, and we'll be there to continue to support the growth of industry and jobs here in Canada.
So with the growing tensions between China and Taiwan, is there any plans for having more jobs and reliable source of semiconductor plants here in Canada or US, just so there is no over-reliability on one part of the continent or the country or the world?
And that was a good discussion that Prime Minister Trudeau had with other leaders is how do we bring some of that manufacturing capacity to North America? How do we work on, some call it friendshoring, some call it nearshoring. How do we bring that processing capacity, the manufacturing abilities to North America? And so when we met, we sat down with business leaders the other day as well, from USA, from Mexico, and from Canada, because we brought them all together in the same room so we can talk about growing together and bringing home some of those opportunities. And so it seems very, very promising from the business community. And of course, like I said, the government is looking forward to growing that capacity.
So is there a future Silicon Valley in Canada? Is that a probability?
I think, look, our innovation, our technology sector is growing really rapidly. So Shelley, I'm not sure if you're aware, I was in Brazil last week for the presidential inauguration for President Lula. And so much of our technology, our innovation, I don't remember the company or I'm not able to say it, but there's a company from Waterloo, Ontario, that does water purification in Brazil, in one of the largest cities. So a lot of our technology and innovation is actually being used in a lot of parts of South America, in the region, in the hemisphere. And so I think more of that we'll see going forward.
Well, that's actually, on a positive note, I'm going to leave the semiconductor question because that is for the future to see what it holds. But you mentioned at the beginning of the interview that as part of the delegation to the North America's Leaders Summit, you were focused on the region as well. And you have some good news for the region of Peel and Southern Ontario itself, the GTA region. So what is that?
Yeah, so I think it's important. Look, we know that many people are looking at our economy. There's affordability questions that come up. And so as a government, I think we need to continue focused on growing the economy. And that's one of my focus is when I talk to constituents, when you talk to residents of Brampton, they ask, okay, how do we provide more opportunities for our youth? You know, youth get educated, they have good degrees, but in order to find those good jobs, they have to leave Brampton or they have to drive somewhere else. And so how do we bring the industry, good paying industry, professional industries to Brampton? And so that's some of the things that myself and my Brampton colleagues, the Brampton MPs have been working on here in Brampton. And so one of the examples I'd love to give you is the MDA. MDA is a company based in Brampton. They made the Canada space arm for the Canadian Space Station. And that's a Brampton company known all around the world now. And so our federal government, we did a lot of advocacy on the federal government side here in Ottawa to bring funding to that company so they can expand. And with that expansion will be roughly over 500 good paying jobs from engineering, product development, and many other specialty jobs that come with that. And so I think that's one example. Another example I can give you is in the auto sector. So we have the Chrysler and Stellantis, well, they call it Stellantis in Brampton East at Williams Parkway and Airport, which makes vehicles. So their production capacity was coming to an end this year. They didn't have any existing line capacity to go forward. So we need to make sure those jobs, there's roughly over 1,000 jobs that are directly and indirectly supported at that plant. And how do we make sure those jobs stay in our community? And so we were able to advocate with federal ministers and with our prime ministers to put an investment to ensure that that factory stays in our riding or in Brampton to ensure those jobs stay here. And with that, I know they're retooling this year. And so they'll be able to make electric vehicles and electric batteries starting next year. And that's a big accomplishment for Brampton.
Absolutely, it is. And very exciting for Bramptonians itself. And the day has just started for you. There are a couple of important events that you will be also attending. And I couldn't help but mention that Japanese Prime Minister is also here in Canada, and it is his first official visit ever since he took his office. So given into account that Canada recently announced in November 2020 the new Indo-Pacific policy, where does the Japan and Canada relationship stand, and what can we expect from the meeting between the two prime ministers?
So when you speak of Japan visiting Canada, it's because what Canada has so much to offer. It goes to show that the work that the Prime Minister, that ministers, that MPs are doing on the ground is really resonating. So countries are looking to Canada to really bring in their businesses or corporations here to create good paying jobs because they see value in Canada. They see that we have the expertise, we have the education, we have a workforce that wants to work. And so it's incredible when you see these visits. And so, with the Indo-Pacific strategy, we want to continue that. Japan, as you know, is an aging country. And so they're looking to some of the countries that they think can make an impact and really help Canada grow and bring those opportunities home. And so in the electrical vehicle space, in electric battery space, they're really looking to Canada to see how they can set up shop with some of their Japanese companies.
Well, I won't take much of your time now, but before I let you go, is there a message for Bramptonians, for your people here in the GTA region that you want to share?
Well, yeah, just, first of all, Happy New Year. It's 2023. I'm here in Ottawa. The session will start in a couple of weeks from now. We know affordability is top of mind. We know opportunities and the economy is top of mind for Canadians. And I want to assure you that MPs in Brampton and Peel and across Canada will continue working hard with our Prime Minister to ensure that families are supported, whether that's through our childcare program that we're able to bring down fees by 50% from, families are now saving $6,000 a year, whether that's through our GST, the doubling of the tax credit, the GST, whether that's through our dental plan. I think there's many things that we're doing for families and we'll continue working hard to deliver for families. So I just want to say thank you so much for your support, to all your viewers, to all your listeners. I'll continue working hard for you. Thank you so much, G.
You are watching Channel Y, a South Asian Canadian channel.